The windshield wipers were fighting a losing battle against the snow. David gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles turning white as he squinted through the white curtain that seemed determined to swallow the mountain road whole. In the back seat, his daughter Lily was finally quiet, her small chest rising and falling in peaceful sleep. She still had her pink ballet costume on under her puffy winter jacket, the tutu sticking out at odd angles. David glanced at her in the rearview mirror and felt that familiar ache in his chest. 3 years. It had been 3 years since her mother died, and he still caught himself looking for Jessica in doorways, still reached for her side of the bed in his sleep. Raising an 8-year-old girl alone was the hardest thing he'd ever done. But watching Lily perform tonight, seeing that pure joy on her face as she spun across the stage, made every struggle worth it. The snow was coming down harder now. What had started as light flurries an hour ago had turned into a full blizzard. David slowed the SUV to barely 20 miles per hour, following the faint yellow line that marked the edge of the road. They were still 15 miles from home, and his phone had lost signal 10 minutes ago. The smart thing would have been to stay in town, maybe get a hotel room. But Lily had school tomorrow and he had an important client meeting at 9. He was mentally running through his presentation when he saw it. A dark shape on the side of the road, wrong somehow. Not a rock or a fallen branch. Something that didn't belong there. David's foot hit the brake instinctively. The SUV slid slightly on the icy road before coming to a stop. He put on his hazard lights and stared through the passenger window, trying to make sense of what he was seeing through the swirling snow. Was that a person? His heart started pounding. He looked back at Lily, still sleeping peacefully, then back at the shape. Could he be imagining things? The storm was making everything look strange, shadows dancing in the headlights. But no. That was definitely a person lying in the snow. David threw the car into park and grabbed his phone, even though he knew there was no signal. He pulled on his gloves, zipped his jacket all the way up, and opened the door. The wind hit him like a fist, so cold it hurt to breathe. Snow immediately plastered against his face and jacket. He ran to the shape, his boots sinking deep into the snow with each step. As he got closer, his stomach dropped. It was a woman, lying on her side, partially buried in a snowdrift. Her lips had a bluish tint and she wasn't moving. Behind her, barely visible through the storm, he could make out the front end of a car nose down in the ditch. David dropped to his knees beside her, not caring about the snow soaking through his jeans. He pulled off one glove and pressed 2 fingers against her neck, praying he'd find something. There, a pulse. Weak and slow, but there. Thank God, he whispered. Hey, can you hear me? Ma'am, no response. He needed to see her face, to check if she was breathing properly. David gently brushed the snow away from her face, his movements careful and quick. And then everything stopped. The wind, the cold, the urgency. Everything seemed to freeze as he stared at her face. It was Jessica. His dead wife was lying in the snow in front of him. David's hands started shaking so badly he almost couldn't function. His brain knew it was impossible. He'd been to Jessica's funeral. He'd held Lily's hand as they lowered the casket into the ground. He'd visited her grave just last week, placed fresh flowers like he did every month. But this woman had Jessica's face. Not similar. Not kind of like her. Exactly like her. The same delicate nose, the same high cheekbones, the same auburn hair plastered against her forehead. Even that tiny scar above her left eyebrow, the one Jessica got when she fell off her bike as a kid. No, David breathed. This isn't real, but it was real. The woman groaned softly, and that small sound snapped David back to reality. Whoever this woman was, whatever impossible coincidence had given her Jessica's face, she was dying in front of him. He couldn't just sit here in shock. His hands were still shaking as he yanked his phone out. No signal, of course. He tried anyway, dialing 911 3 times before accepting it wasn't going to work. The woman's breathing was shallow and irregular. David had taken a first aid course 2 years ago, mandatory for work. He tried to remember what they'd said about hypothermia. Get them warm. Don't warm them too fast. Keep them conscious if possible. He ran back to his SUV, moving on autopilot. In the back, he always kept an emergency kit. Jessica had insisted on it when Lily was born. The irony wasn't lost on him as he grabbed the silver thermal blanket and the chemical hand warmers. Lily stirred when he opened the back door. Daddy? It's okay, sweetheart. Go back to sleep. Daddy just needs to help someone. Help who? A lady, her car went off the road. I'll be right back. He didn't wait for more questions. Back in the snow, David carefully wrapped the thermal blanket around the woman. She was wearing jeans and a thin jacket. Completely wrong for this weather. What had she been thinking driving up here dressed like that? He cracked 2 hand warmers and placed them carefully against her core, one on her chest and one on her stomach outside the blanket. Then he tried his phone again. Still nothing. David looked at the woman's car in the ditch. No way he could pull her to it, and it looked pretty banged up anyway. His SUV was warm safe. He needed to get her inside, but moving someone with hypothermia could be dangerous. What if she had injuries he couldn't see? But leaving her out here was certain death. He made the decision. Sliding his arms under her carefully, David lifted the woman as gently as he could. She was light, too light, and completely limp. He carried her to the SUV, trying not to slip on the ice, and managed to get the passenger door open. He laid her across the front seats, keeping the thermal blanket wrapped tight around her. The heat from the car vents hit him, and David realized how cold he'd gotten in just those few minutes outside. His fingers felt numb and his face stung. "Daddy, who is that lady?" Lily's voice was small and confused. David turned around. His daughter was wide awake now, staring at the unconscious woman in the front seat. He watched as recognition and confusion washed over Lily's face. "She looks like Mommy." Those 4 words hung in the air. David swallowed hard. "I know, baby. But it's not Mommy. It's someone who needs our help. Can you be brave for me?" Lily nodded slowly, her eyes still fixed on the woman's face. David put the car in gear and started driving, slower than before, searching desperately for a place where his phone might get signal. Every few seconds he glanced at the woman. Her breathing seemed a little better, the color returning slightly to her lips. But she was still unconscious, still in danger. 5 miles down the road, his phone suddenly beeped. 1 bar of signal. David immediately pulled over and dialed 911, his words tumbling out in a rush. Location, condition, everything he could think of. The dispatcher told him an ambulance would meet him at the gas station another 3 miles down the mountain. "Stay with me," David whispered to the unconscious woman as he drove. "Just stay with me." 15 minutes later, the ambulance lights cut through the storm. The paramedics took over with efficient precision, asking questions David answered automatically. Name? He didn't know. Age maybe mid-30s. Medical conditions? No idea. As they loaded her into the ambulance, one of the paramedics turned to David. "You saved her life. Another 20 minutes and we'd be having a different conversation." David nodded numbly. He stood in the parking lot, snow accumulating on his shoulders, watching the ambulance disappear into the white night. Behind him, Lily pressed her face against the car window, and David knew the questions were coming. Questions he had no idea how to answer. Because how do you explain to your 8-year-old daughter that you just pulled a stranger from the snow, who looks exactly like her dead mother? David couldn't stay away from the hospital. He told himself it was just to check on her condition, to make sure she was okay. But deep down he knew it was more than that. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Jessica's face covered in snow, and his brain couldn't separate what was real from what was impossible. The first day, he called the hospital 3 times. The nurse on duty was patient but firm. The woman was stable but still unconscious. No, she couldn't share more information because he wasn't family. Yes, she understood he saved her life. Policy was policy. David hung up feeling frustrated and oddly empty. That night, Lily asked about the lady again at dinner. She pushed her macaroni around her plate, not eating, just thinking. "Is she going to be okay, Daddy?" "I think so, sweetheart. She really looked like Mommy." David set down his fork. "I know, but it's not Mommy. You understand that, right?" Lily nodded, but her eyes were sad and confused. "Does that lady have a family? Someone who knows she's hurt?" That question had been eating at David, too. When the paramedics went through her car, they found a purse with a Washington driver's license. The name had been hard to read in the chaos, but he remembered it started with an O. No one had been listed in her phone as an emergency contact. No rings on her fingers. The second day, David dropped Lily at school and drove straight to the hospital. He didn't plan it. His car just seemed to know where to go. He stood in the lobby for 10 minutes debating whether he was being crazy, before approaching the front desk. "I'm here to check on the woman brought in from the mountain road 2 nights ago. Hypothermia case," the volunteer at the desk typed on her computer. "Name? I don't know her name. I'm the one who found her. The woman's expression softened. Oh, let me see what I can find out. More typing. She's awake. Moved out of intensive care this morning, actually. Room 312, David's heart jumped. She's awake? According to this, yes. Woke up around 6 this morning. He should leave. He should go home, go to work, get back to his normal life. But his feet were already moving toward the elevator. Room 312 was at the end of a quiet hallway. David stood outside the door for a long moment, his hand raised to knock, frozen in indecision. What was he even doing here? What would he say to her? Before he could decide, a nurse came out of the room. She gave him a curious look. Can I help you? I'm the one who found her. On the mountain road. I just wanted to make sure she was okay. The nurse's face lit up. You're David? She's been asking about you. Hold on. She disappeared back into the room. A moment later, she beckoned him inside. The woman was sitting up in bed, looking pale but alert. An IV drip ran into her arm and monitors beeped softly nearby. When she turned her head and their eyes met, David felt like he'd been punched in the stomach all over again. In the harsh hospital lighting, the resemblance was even more striking. Jessica's green eyes, Jessica's smile, even the way she tilted her head slightly when she looked at him. Hi, she said, her voice hoarse. They told me you're the one who found me. David managed to nod. Yeah, I was driving home with my daughter. I'm told I would have died if you hadn't stopped. She smiled, and it was warm and genuine. Thank you doesn't really seem like enough, does it? You don't need to thank me. Anyone would have done the same. But anyone didn't, you did. She gestured to the chair beside the bed. Will you sit? I'd like to know the name of the man who saved my life. David sat, feeling awkward and strange. I'm David Chen. Olivia. Olivia Bennett. She extended her hand and they shook. Her grip was weak but friendly. Olivia. So that's what the O stood for. The doctor said I was incredibly lucky, Olivia continued. Apparently I have you to thank for still having all my fingers and toes. She wiggled her hands in demonstration. What were you doing out there in that storm? Coming back from my daughter's dance recital. What were you doing out there? Olivia's expression turned sheepish. Being an idiot, basically. I'm a photographer from Seattle. I drove out here to get some shots of the winter landscape. The weather forecast said light snow, but... She trailed off with a shrug. I grew up in California. I don't think I really understood what a mountain storm could do. Your car slid off the road? I hit black ice. 1 second I was fine, the next I was spinning. The car went into the ditch and I hit my head on something. When I came to, I was so cold and confused. I tried to walk, thought I saw lights, but I must have collapsed. She touched the bandage on her forehead gently. I don't remember much after that until I woke up here. David found himself relaxing slightly. She was easy to talk to, her voice and mannerisms completely different from Jessica's. Jessica had been energetic, always in motion. This woman had a calmness about her, a slower way of moving and speaking, but that face. That impossible face, are you okay? Olivia asked. You look like you've seen a ghost. David almost laughed at the accuracy of that statement. I'm fine, just didn't get much sleep. Well, I hope I haven't caused too much trouble. The hospital is trying to reach my insurance company, and they're going to help me figure out what to do about my car. She paused. Do you know if my equipment survived? I had several cameras in the back seat. I don't know. The paramedics might have secured your things. They talked for another 20 minutes. Olivia told him about her photography work, how she traveled around capturing landscapes for stock photo companies and occasionally for magazines. She lived alone in a small apartment in Seattle, had no pets, no family to speak of. Her parents had died in a house fire when she was 3, and she'd grown up in foster care. Never got adopted, she said matter-of-factly. Bounced around until I aged out at 18. But I did okay. Put myself through community college. Learned photography from YouTube videos and library books. David found himself admiring her resilience, but also feeling a deep sadness for the loneliness in her story. No family at all. No one to call when she was lying in a hospital bed. When he finally stood to leave, Olivia caught his hand. David? Thank you, really. I mean it. He nodded and left quickly, feeling her eyes on his back. The next day he came back, and the day after that. Each time he told himself it would be the last visit, that he was just checking in one more time. But Olivia was easy to talk to, and she seemed genuinely happy to see him. She asked about Lily, about his work as an architect, about his life. The nurses started recognizing him. One of them, an older woman named Patricia, pulled him aside on his fourth visit. "You know, I've been working here for 20 years, and I've never seen someone visit a stranger this much. You sure you two don't know each other?" David shook his head. Never met her before that night. Patricia studied his face. "Uh-huh. Well, she's being discharged tomorrow. Doctors say she's recovered enough to leave." That news hit David harder than it should have. "That's good. That's really good. Where's she going? Does she have somewhere to stay while they fix her car?" David hadn't thought about that. He found Olivia sitting by the window in her room, dressed in clothes the hospital had provided since her own had been cut off in the emergency room. "Patricia says you're getting out tomorrow." Olivia nodded. "Yep, freedom at last, although I'm not sure what I'm going to do. My car is totaled, apparently. The insurance company is sending someone to look at it, but that'll take a few days, and I need to figure out where I'm staying." The hospital social worker mentioned a motel in town. "That place is awful," David said before he could stop himself. "It's got bedbugs and the heat barely works. Well, it's not like I have a lot of options. I can't exactly afford the nice hotel, not with all these medical bills coming." David heard himself saying the words before his brain caught up. "You could stay at my place, just until your car situation is sorted out. I have a guest room." Olivia's eyes widened. "David, I can't. That's too much. You've already done so much, and it's not a big deal. The room's just sitting there empty anyway. You have a daughter. You can't just bring a stranger into your home." "You're not a stranger. You're Olivia Bennett, photographer from Seattle, terrible at judging mountain weather, survivor of the worst storm we've had in 5 years. He smiled. "Besides, Lily's been asking about you." That last part was true. Lily asked about the lady from the snow almost every day. Olivia hesitated, clearly torn. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." He wasn't sure at all. He was doing something crazy, something that made no logical sense. But the thought of her staying in that awful motel, alone and recovering, made his chest ache. "Okay," Olivia finally said, "but just for a few days. Just until I figure things out." "Just for a few days," David agreed. He left the hospital feeling like he'd just stepped off a cliff without checking how far down the ground was. What was he thinking? He was bringing home a woman who looked exactly like his dead wife. How was he supposed to explain that to Lily? That night he sat his daughter down for a serious talk. "Remember the lady from the snow?" Lily nodded eagerly. "The one who looks like Mommy? Her name is Olivia, and she needs somewhere to stay for a few days while her car gets fixed. I told her she could use our guest room." Lily's face lit up. "Really? She's coming here?" "Yes, but sweetie, I need you to understand something. She's not Mommy. She just looks like Mommy. It's a weird coincidence, but that's all it is, okay?" "I know, Daddy, I'm not a baby." David wished he felt as certain as his 8-year-old daughter sounded. The next afternoon, he picked Olivia up from the hospital. She had one small bag with her, containing the few items the hospital staff had managed to salvage from her car. As they drove toward his house, David found himself seeing the familiar route through new eyes, wondering what she'd think of his modest 2-story home, the one he and Jessica had bought right after Lily was born. "This is really kind of you," Olivia said quietly. "It's fine. Really." But as they pulled into the driveway and he saw Lily's face pressed against the living room window, David wondered if anything about this situation was going to be fine at all. The first morning was awkward. David woke up to the smell of coffee, and for one heart-stopping moment thought Jessica was in the kitchen. Then reality crashed back. Olivia was the one making coffee. Her hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing borrowed sweats from his sister that he'd dug out of storage. "Hope you don't mind," she said when she saw him. "I'm useless before caffeine." Lily bounded into the kitchen, already dressed for school in her favorite purple shirt. She stopped short when she saw Olivia, staring with that unfiltered curiosity only kids can pull off. "Hi," Lily said finally. "Hi there. You must be Lily. Your dad's told me a lot about you. You really do look like my mom." David winced. "Lily, we talked about this. I know, but she does." Lily walked closer, studying Olivia's face with scientific interest. "She has the same hair, and the same little bump on her nose. And that scar, the ing above her eye." Olivia touched her eyebrow self-consciously. "This? I've had it since I was a kid. Never knew how I got it. Mommy got hers from falling off her bike when she was 7. She told me the story lots of times. The room went quiet. David saw something flicker across Olivia's face, confusion mixed with something else he couldn't identify. That's actually how I got mine too, Olivia said slowly. At least that's what my foster mother told me. Said I showed up with it already healed when I was 3. David felt cold. Coincidence? It had to be coincidence. The week passed in a strange rhythm. Olivia spent her days dealing with insurance companies and trying to salvage her photography equipment. David went to work, came home, made dinner. Lily did homework at the kitchen table while Olivia edited photos on her laptop, the two of them falling into an easy companionship that seemed natural and right. Too natural. Too right. David caught himself watching Olivia when she wasn't looking, the way she laughed at Lily's jokes, the way she hummed while washing dishes, little things that reminded him of Jessica, and other things that were completely different. On Thursday evening, Lily was showing Olivia her room, pointing out her collection of stuffed animals and her dance trophies. David stood in the hallway listening. "This is my favorite," Lily said. "Mommy gave it to me for my 5th birthday. The elephant. It's cute. Mommy said elephants are good luck, and they remember everything so they never forget the people they love. That's beautiful. Do you think my mommy can see me? From heaven?" David's chest tightened. He started to move into the room to rescue Olivia from the heavy question, but she was already answering. "I think if heaven is real, and I hope it is, then yes. I think she sees you and she's so proud of what an amazing kid you are. I miss her a lot. I bet you do. I bet she misses you too." David backed away quietly, his throat tight with emotion. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, he found Olivia sitting on the back porch despite the cold. She had a blanket wrapped around her shoulders and was staring up at the stars. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. "It's your porch." David sat in the chair next to her. "Thank you for what you said to Lily earlier. I didn't know you were listening. I wasn't trying to. I just heard." He paused. "She doesn't talk about her mom much anymore. I think she's afraid it'll make me sad." "Does it?" "Yes, but it also keeps Jessica alive in a way. The memories, the stories." He looked at Olivia. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Does it bother you? That you look like her? That Lily keeps noticing?" Olivia was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, it's strange. I've always wondered about my birth parents, you know? Who I looked like, where I came from. And now I'm in this house full of photos of a woman who could be my twin, and it's making me wonder things I probably shouldn't." "What kind of things?" "Crazy things. Impossible things." She pulled the blanket tighter. "My adoption records were sealed. I tried to access them when I turned 18, but I hit brick walls everywhere. All I know is that I was found as a 3-year-old after a house fire. No relatives came forward. They assumed my parents died in the fire." David felt his heart start to beat faster. "Jessica never knew her father. Her mom raised her alone. She told me once that her mom had twins but gave one up for adoption because she was only 16 and couldn't handle 2 babies." Olivia turned to look at him, her eyes wide. "What? I didn't think about it until now. It was just something she mentioned once early in our relationship, and we never really talked about it again. But she said she'd always wondered about her sister, wished she knew what happened to her." "David, that's—" Olivia shook her head. "That's crazy. The odds of that being real, of me being her sister, it's like winning the lottery while being struck by lightning. But possible. Theoretically possible and actually possible are very different things." But David could see the hope in her eyes. The same hope he was feeling. "Jessica's mom is still alive. She lives in a nursing home about an hour from here. We could ask her. I don't want to upset her. She's an old woman who lost her daughter. She's also a woman who gave up a child and might want to know what happened to her." David leaned forward. "Or we could do a DNA test, just to know for sure." Olivia laughed, but it sounded shaky. "This is insane. We're talking about this like it's actually possible. Is it really more insane than me finding you in a snowstorm? Than you looking exactly like my wife? Maybe the universe is trying to tell us something. The universe doesn't work that way. Maybe it does." They ordered the DNA testing kit that night, both of them feeling slightly ridiculous but unable to let go of the possibility. The kit arrived 2 days later with overnight shipping. They did the cheek swabs in the kitchen, Lily watching with fascination. "What are you testing for?" she asked. Just trying to figure out if Olivia and your mom might have been related, David explained. Like sisters? Maybe. That would be so cool. Then Olivia would be my aunt. The excitement in Lily's voice made David's heart sink. What if the test came back negative? What if they were building up hope for nothing? The results would take 2 weeks. 2 weeks of waiting, of wondering, of trying not to let imagination run wild. Olivia's car situation got sorted out, but she didn't leave. Neither of them talked about why she was still in the guest room, why she'd started joining them for dinner every night, why she'd become part of their routine. David found himself looking forward to coming home from work. Olivia would be there, usually with Lily, the two of them working on some project or other. She'd started teaching Lily basic photography, and his daughter's Instagram account was suddenly full of surprisingly good photos of birds and flowers and clouds. One evening, David was working late on a design proposal when Olivia knocked on his home office door. "Got a minute?" she asked. "Sure, what's up?" She came in and sat in the chair across from his desk. "I need to talk to you about something, and it's been eating at me." David felt his stomach drop. "Okay, I've been here almost 3 weeks now, and I keep telling myself I'm just waiting for the DNA results, but that's not really true." She looked down at her hands. "The truth is, I like it here. I like being around you and Lily. I like feeling like I'm part of something instead of just drifting around taking pictures. But I'm not part of this. I'm a stranger who happened to get stuck in a snowstorm. You're not a stranger anymore, aren't I? David, you know why you stopped to help me. You know why you keep looking at me the way you do. You see her when you look at me. That's not true, isn't it?" Olivia's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I'm a ghost of someone you loved. And if that DNA test comes back positive, what then? Do I become her replacement? Her substitute? The sister who gets to step into her life? It's not like that. Then what is it like? Because I need to understand what's happening here before I get more attached to a life that was never meant to be mine." David didn't have an answer. The truth was, he didn't know anymore where Jessica's memory ended, and his growing feelings for Olivia began. He was drawn to her, but was it because of her face or because of who she was? The question kept him awake at night. Before he could figure out what to say, Lily appeared in the doorway in her pajamas. "Why is everyone being so serious?" "Just grown-up talk, sweetheart," David said. "Are you leaving?" Lily asked Olivia directly. "I heard you talking. You sounded like you were saying goodbye." "I'm not leaving tonight," Olivia said gently. "But you're thinking about it. Lily, I'm not your family. I'm just someone your dad helped. But what if you are my family? What if the test says you're my aunt? You can't leave then. Lily, even if the test is positive, that doesn't mean, why not? Why does everything have to be so complicated? Mommy's gone. She's not coming back. But you're here. And Daddy smiles more when you're here. And I like having you here. Why isn't that enough?" Out of the mouths of babes, David looked at his daughter, then at Olivia, and saw the truth reflected in both their faces. An 8-year-old had just cut through all their complicated adult fears and said what they were all thinking. The DNA results arrived on a Tuesday. The envelope sat on the kitchen counter for an hour before any of them had the courage to open it. Finally, with Lily standing between them, David tore it open. He read the results twice to make sure he understood them correctly. "Well?" Olivia whispered. David looked up at her, at this woman who'd crashed into their lives in a snowstorm, and felt the world shift beneath his feet. 99.9% probability of a sibling relationship. His voice shook. "You're sisters. You and Jessica were twins." Olivia's knees buckled. David caught her, and she gripped his arms like she might fall. Lily wrapped her arms around both of them, and they stood there in the kitchen. 3 people bound together by impossible odds and undeniable truth. "I have an aunt," Lily said, wonder in her voice. "You have an aunt?" David confirmed. But as he looked at Olivia, at the tears streaming down her face, he realized everything had just gotten more complicated. Because now she wasn't just a stranger who looked like his wife. She was his wife's twin sister, his daughter's aunt, a member of their family by blood, and he was falling in love with her. The news spread through their small circle, like ripples in a pond. First they had to tell Helen, Jessica's mother. David drove Olivia to the nursing home the day after they got the results, both of them silent and nervous during the hour-long drive. Helen was 82 years old and spent most of her days in the common room working on jigsaw puzzles. Her mind was still sharp, but her body had given up years ago. When they walked in and she saw Olivia, The puzzle piece in her hand clattered to the table. "Dear God," Helen whispered. "Jessica?" "No, Helen, it's not Jessica." David knelt beside her wheelchair. "This is Olivia. We took a DNA test. She's Jessica's twin sister." Helen stared at Olivia with tears running down her wrinkled cheeks. "I looked for you. After I got my life together, I tried to find you. But they told me the records were sealed. They said it was better to let the past stay in the past." Olivia moved closer, her own eyes wet. "I've spent my whole life wondering who I looked like. You look like your father. Jessica looked like me, but you have his eyes, his nose." Helen reached out with a trembling hand and Olivia took it. "I was 16 years old. I had 2 babies and no job and parents who kicked me out. I kept one and gave up the other, and I've regretted it every day since." They stayed for 3 hours. Helen told stories about Jessica as a child, and Olivia soaked up every word like someone dying of thirst. She learned that her sister had been afraid of thunder, loved strawberry ice cream, wanted to be a veterinarian until she discovered she was allergic to cats. "She would have been so happy to know you," Helen said. "She asked about you sometimes, wondered where you were, if you were happy, if you thought about her." "I didn't know I had a sister to think about," Olivia said softly. Driving home, Olivia was quiet. David let the silence sit, understanding that she was processing decades of questions, finally getting answers. "Thank you for taking me," she finally said. "Of course. I have a family. I've never had that before. A mother, a niece. It feels like a dream. It's real." But over the next few weeks, David started to realize that reality was more complicated than DNA tests and emotional reunions. Olivia became a fixture in their home. She officially moved into the guest room. No more pretending it was temporary. She met David's sister and his close friends. Lily introduced her at school as my aunt who we found in the snow, and David fell deeper every day. It started small. The way his heart jumped when he heard her laugh. How he found excuses to be in whatever room she was in. The electric feeling when their hands accidentally touched. He tried to fight it, told himself it was wrong, but his heart wasn't listening. Helen noticed first. During their next visit to the nursing home, Olivia took Lily to get snacks from the vending machine, leaving David alone with his former mother-in-law. "You have feelings for her," Helen said. It wasn't a question. David's face burned. "Helen, don't insult me by lying. I've known you for 12 years. I know that look. I don't know what I'm feeling." Everything's confused. Helen's expression hardened. "She's my daughter's twin sister. Jessica's been gone less than 4 years. And you're already looking at her replacement like she's the answer to your prayers. That's not what's happening, isn't it? You saved this girl from the snow and suddenly you have a copy of my daughter living in your house, taking care of your child, filling the empty space Jessica left behind. Olivia isn't a copy of anyone. She's her own person, is she? Or is she just playing the role of the dead woman whose face she happens to wear?" Helen's hands shook as she gripped the arms of her wheelchair. "I've already lost one daughter. I just found the other. I won't watch you turn her into a substitute for my Jessica." The words hit like physical blows. David left the nursing home feeling sick. Helen's accusations echoing in his head. Was that what he was doing? Using Olivia to fill the hole Jessica left? That night he couldn't sleep. He got up around 2 in the morning and found Olivia in the kitchen, also unable to rest. They made tea in silence and sat at the table. "I'm thinking about leaving," Olivia said quietly. David's stomach dropped. "What? Why?" "Because this is getting messy, complicated." She wrapped her hands around her mug. "I started seeing a therapist last week. Did I tell you that?" He shook his head. "She's helping me process everything. The discovery about my sister meeting Helen, becoming part of Lily's life." Olivia looked up at him. "But the thing we keep coming back to is you. Me. David, I'm not stupid. I see how you look at me. And I need you to be honest with me right now. Do you have feelings for me or do you have feelings for your dead wife's ghost?" The question hung in the air between them. David wanted to lie, to deny everything, but he couldn't. "I don't know how to answer that. That's what scares me." Olivia's voice broke slightly. "I've spent my whole life being nobody. No family, no real home, no place where I belonged. And then I crash into your life and suddenly I have all of that. A mother who wants me, a niece who adores me, a man who looks at me like I hung the moon. It's everything I ever wanted, but I don't know if any of it's real." Am I Olivia to you, or am I just the closest thing to Jessica you can have? And more importantly, am I staying because this is where I belong, or because I'm so desperate for a family that I'll take one that was never mine to begin with? David reached across the table and took her hand. You're not Jessica. You're completely different from her in 100 ways. You're quieter, more thoughtful. You see the world through a camera lens, finding beauty in small things. Jessica was all energy and motion. You're more like still water. Then why do you feel what you feel? Because you're kind and patient with my daughter. Because you make me laugh. Because you're brave and you've survived things that should have broken you. Because when I come home and see you there, the house doesn't feel empty anymore. He squeezed her hand. If you looked nothing like Jessica, I think I'd still feel this way. You think or you know? He couldn't answer that. Because the truth was, he didn't know. How could he separate what he felt for Olivia from the fact that she wore Jessica's face? Olivia pulled her hand away. I need some space. Some time to figure out who I am when I'm not playing house with my dead sister's family. Don't go. I have to. Before I lose myself completely in this. Olivia moved out 3 days later, finding a small apartment across town. She still came to visit Lily twice a week, still had dinner with Helen every Sunday, but the easy intimacy was gone. When she looked at David now, there was a wall between them that hadn't been there before. Lily was devastated. She didn't understand why her aunt couldn't live with them anymore. She started having nightmares again, the ones she'd had right after Jessica died, where everyone she loved disappeared. I don't want Aunt Olivia to go away like Mommy did. She sobbed into David's chest one night. She's not going away. She's just living in her own place. Grown-ups do that, but why? We have room for her. We want her here. David didn't have a good answer. How could he explain to an 8-year-old the complicated tangle of grief and guilt and desire that was keeping Olivia away? Helen called him a week after Olivia moved out. Her voice was softer than it had been at their last meeting. Olivia came to see me yesterday. She told me she moved out. Yeah. She also told me she's thinking about leaving town entirely, going back to Seattle or maybe trying somewhere new. David felt like he'd been stabbed. She didn't tell me that. Because she's afraid of hurting you. And because she's afraid of staying. Helen sighed. David, I owe you an apology. What I said before about you trying to replace Jessica, it wasn't fair. You were protecting your daughter's memory. I was being a scared old woman who's terrified of losing anyone else. But Olivia isn't Jessica's replacement. She's her own person, and she deserves to be loved for who she is, not who she looks like. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like both of you are so busy worrying about Jessica's ghost that you're missing what's right in front of you. After hanging up, David sat in his empty house and thought about what Helen said. He thought about Olivia, about the way she hummed while editing photos, about her terrible jokes and her patient teaching of Lily, about how she always remembered to buy the good coffee and how she left little notes on the bathroom mirror. He thought about Jessica, too, about the life they'd built and the love they'd shared, and he realized something important. Loving Olivia didn't erase Jessica. It didn't replace her or diminish what they'd had. It was just different love for a different person. But did Olivia believe that? More importantly, did she love him? Or was she just grateful for the family he represented? David decided he needed to know. He found Olivia at her new apartment on a Saturday morning. She answered the door in paint-stained jeans, her hair tied back, surprise on her face. David, is everything okay? Is Lily's fine. She's at a friend's house. He took a deep breath. Can I come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside. The apartment was small, but she'd already made it her own. Photographs covered one wall, a mix of her landscape work and new shots of Lily, Helen, even a few of David. I need to say something, David started, and I need you to really hear me. Okay, you're not Jessica. You're Olivia. And yes, when I first saw you, all I could see was my dead wife. But that's not what I see anymore. I see a woman who's stronger than she knows. Someone who's been through hell and came out soft instead of hard. I see someone who teaches my daughter to see beauty in ordinary things. Someone who makes me want to be better, to try harder, to open my heart even though it still has cracks in it from breaking. Olivia's eyes were shining with tears. David, let me finish. I'm not asking you to stay because I need someone to fill Jessica's role. I'm asking you to stay because I love you. Not her ghost, not her memory, you. And maybe that's too much too soon. And maybe I'm screwing this up, but I needed you to know. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. Olivia turned away, looking out her small window at the street below. I love you too, she finally whispered. That's the problem. I love you and Lily and even this weird little life we accidentally built together, but I'm terrified that I'm not really Olivia in this equation. I'm the miracle substitute, the lost twin who showed up right when you needed someone. You're not a substitute. How do you know? How can either of us know? She turned back to face him. I've been talking to my therapist about this a lot. About identity and family and what it means to belong somewhere, and she asked me something that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. What? If you'd met me before Jessica died, would you have looked at me twice? Or would I have just been your wife's unknown sister, maybe a friend, but nothing more? Is it only because Jessica's gone that there's space for me in your heart? David opened his mouth to deny it, but stopped. Because it was a fair question, and he didn't have a good answer. He and Jessica had been happy. If she'd lived, if Olivia had shown up as her long-lost twin, would he have fallen in love with her? Or would she have just been his sister-in-law, someone he saw at holidays and family gatherings? I don't know, he admitted. I can't know. But I know what I feel now. I know that when you're not around, I miss you. Not Jessica, you. The way you laugh at dumb jokes. The way you actually listen when people talk instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. The way you see things I miss. Olivia wiped her eyes. I need more time. To figure out who I am separate from all of this. To know that I'm not just becoming who you need me to be. It wasn't the answer David wanted, but he understood. Okay, take your time. I'll be here. As he left, Olivia called after him. David, thank you. For seeing me instead of her. Even if I'm not sure I see myself yet. Over the next month, David and Olivia maintained a careful distance. She still visited Lily, still had meals with Helen, but they were never alone together. David threw himself into work and being a father, trying not to count the days until Olivia figured out what she wanted. Lily asked about her aunt constantly. When is she coming back? I don't know, sweetheart. Did you and her have a fight? Not a fight. We're just giving each other space. Space is dumb. When you love someone, you should be close to them, not far away. Out of the mouths of babes again. But David knew it wasn't that simple. Sometimes love meant stepping back, letting someone find themselves before they could find their way back to you. He just hoped Olivia's journey would lead her back. 3 months passed like cold molasses, slow and painful. David went through the motions of his life, working, parenting, existing. Lily grew quieter, her usual spark dimmed. She asked less about Olivia as the weeks went by, but David knew his daughter well enough to recognize the sadness she was carrying. Lily's teacher called one afternoon. I'm concerned about her grades. She's always been a good student, but lately she's distracted, doesn't turn in homework. Seems sad. David thanked her and hung up feeling like a failure. He was so busy managing his own broken heart that he'd missed his daughter's pain growing. That night he took Lily out for ice cream, just the two of them. Want to talk about what's going on at school? He asked as she pushed her chocolate chip around the bowl. Not really. Your teacher says you're having trouble focusing. Lily shrugged. School's boring. That's never bothered you before. She was quiet for a long moment, then put down her spoon. Why did Aunt Olivia leave us? She didn't leave us. She just needed her own space. That's what you said about Mommy when I was little. That she needed space. But she didn't need space, Daddy. She died. And now Aunt Olivia's gone too, and everyone keeps saying it's fine, but it's not fine. David's throat tightened. Sweetheart, Olivia isn't dead. She still comes to see you every week, but she doesn't stay. She doesn't live with us anymore. And I know it's because of you. What? I heard you and her talking that night before she left. About feelings and Jessica and complicated stuff. You made her confused and now she's gone. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Everyone I love goes away. First Mommy, now Aunt Olivia. And what if you go away too? David pulled his daughter into his arms, holding her tight as she cried. He hadn't realized how much Olivia's absence had affected her, how it had reopened old wounds from losing her mother. In trying to protect his own heart, he'd forgotten to protect hers. I'm not going anywhere, he promised. And Aunt Olivia isn't gone. She's just figuring some things out. What things? Grown-up things about who she is and where she belongs. She belongs with us. Why doesn't she know that? If only it were that simple. The next day was March 15th. It would have been Jessica's 37th birthday. David always took Lily to the cemetery on this day, bringing flowers and spending time remembering. This year felt different, though. Harder somehow. They stood in front of Jessica's headstone, the grass beneath their feet wet from morning dew. Lily placed her flowers carefully and stepped back. "Hi, Mommy," she said quietly. "I miss you. Daddy misses you too. We're doing okay, I guess. School's fine. I got an A on my science project, and I'm getting better at photography. Aunt Olivia taught me before she left." David watched his daughter talk to her mother's grave and felt the weight of the last few years settle on his shoulders. The loneliness, the struggle, the constant fear that he was failing Lily, that he'd never be enough to fill the hole Jessica left. "Daddy?" Lily looked up at him. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "If Mommy could see us now, what do you think she'd want us to do?" The question caught him off guard. "What do you mean?" "About Aunt Olivia. About being sad all the time. About everything." Lily turned back to the headstone. "I think Mommy would want us to be happy. I think she'd want us to love Aunt Olivia and have her live with us. Because Mommy was nice and she loved us, so she'd want us to be okay even without her." David knelt beside his daughter. "You're right. Your mom would want us to be happy. Then why aren't we trying to be?" Out of the mouths of babes. Again. David looked at his 8-year-old daughter and saw a wisdom that shamed him. While he'd been tangled up in guilt and confusion, afraid of dishonoring Jessica's memory, Lily had understood something essential. Love didn't have to be either or. It could be both and. "You know what?" David said. "You're absolutely right. We should try to be happy. And I think I know how to start." They left the cemetery with purpose for the first time in months. David dropped Lily at his sister's house and got back in his car. He had somewhere to be. Olivia's apartment was 45 minutes away. She'd moved to a different town entirely last month, putting even more distance between them. David had only found out from Helen, who was worried about her daughter pulling away from everyone. He knocked on her door just after noon. No answer. He knocked again, louder. Still nothing. David pulled out his phone and called her. He could hear it ringing inside the apartment. "Come on, Olivia. I know you're in there." Finally, the door opened. Olivia stood there in an old sweatshirt and jeans, her hair messier than he'd ever seen it, eyes red like she'd been crying. Behind her, he could see the apartment was bare. Boxes were stacked against the walls, half-packed. "David, what are you doing here? Are you leaving? Really leaving this time?" She looked away. "I got a job offer in Portland. Nature photography for a magazine. It's a good opportunity. When were you going to tell me?" "I told Helen I figured she'd tell you. She's worried about you. Says you've stopped coming to visit? I just need a fresh start." Olivia's voice was thick with emotion. "Somewhere I can figure out who I am without being Jessica's ghost." "You're not her ghost, aren't I? Every time I look in the mirror, I see her. Every time I'm with you and Lily, I feel like I'm wearing someone else's life." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I can't do this anymore. I can't keep being the answer to your grief. Is that really what you think this is? I don't know what to think. I'm so confused all the time. I love you and Lily so much it hurts, but I don't know if it's real love or just desperate gratitude because you gave me the family I always wanted." David stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "I went to Jessica's grave this morning. With Lily. It's her birthday." Olivia's expression softened. "I know, I almost went, but I thought it wasn't my place. Lily said something that made me realize I've been an idiot. She asked what Jessica would want for us. And the answer is simple. She'd want us to be happy. Not stuck in the past, not afraid to move forward, just happy. That's easy for an 8-year-old to say. Maybe. But that doesn't make it wrong." David moved closer. "I've been so worried about whether I was dishonoring Jessica's memory by having feelings for you that I forgot something important. Jessica would have loved you. If she'd found you while she was alive, she would have brought you into our family in a heartbeat. She searched for you, you know. Helen told me. She spent where?